You're listening to the Coast Business Radio podcast.
Harriet Messenger is the General Manager of Marketing and Hospitality at Husk Distillers. You'll find Husk in one of the world's deepest calderas in Tumbulgum, New South Wales. It's also home to the famous Ink Gin and the finest quality Australian agricole rum. Harriet has been responsible for building the Ink Gin and Husk Distillers brands from the ground up and has been long known as the Ink Gin Girl. How do you feel about that?
Pretty good, actually.
The Ink Gin Girl. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. It did. It definitely started off when I was on the road, because back when we first started the business, we were all doing everything, but I was doing all the sales. Mm-hmm. And before people knew me, they kind of met me once, and I was buzzing around their bar, and they thought, "Oh, that Ink Gin Girl," and then it just kind of stuck. So I still roll with it, although it is in use less and less nowadays because I'm not on the road so much.
So you're just sitting back sipping, is that right?
That's right. Well, I'm an office jockey now for the most part. So they call us down in production. They call us the tea drinkers.
The tea drinkers,
which we dispute because we do more than just sip tea. But yes, I am an office jockey more and more.
Hey, tell us how Husk was conceived. I mean, from the start to now.
Oh yeah, well. So it sort of had its origins a few years ago. So we're a family business, and Mum and Dad co-founded the business, and it was really Dad's dream. So he had this real affinity for whiskey. He loved whiskey from all around the world, but particularly Scotch whiskey. And he watched what happened in Tasmania through the 90s with Bill Lark. Bill Lark is known in Australia as the godfather of Australian whiskey and really of Australian craft spirits in general. He was definitely a pioneer for the industry. He's been doing it for much longer than any of us really have been. And Bill has a very similar background to Dad. Dad was an explorational geologist by trade, and Bill was in that sort of industry as well. So he kind of watched this man's journey and said, "Oh, what fun. How fun would it be to set up a whiskey distillery in Tasmania? It sounds like a great idea." And what happened was Tasmanian whiskies became worldly renowned because Tasmania is a great climate for aging whiskey. But we were up in Brisbane. We were living up there at the time, and in a subtropical climate, whiskey isn't as widely made because we don't actually produce any wheat grain or any barley or any of that sort of thing, which the whiskey is made from. So a few years down the road, we found ourselves in the Caribbean and on a bit of a research trip, although I thought it was just a nice family holiday, but it was actually a bit of a research trip, and came across a world of rum, which we had never been exposed to in Australia. Now, growing up in Queensland, we definitely were exposed to rum. We've got a vibrant rum culture, but it really is dominated by one specific style and type of rum, which is the English-style molasses-based rum, Bundaberg, of course, and Beanley rum as well. But over the French Caribbean, they make a very different style of rum using fresh sugarcane juice instead of molasses. So I'm not sure if you've heard of agricole rum before, or agricultural rum, but that's basically what the French guys make. And molasses, being a byproduct of sugar manufacturing, is the same world over. You can buy molasses from the Condong mill here in the Tweed, or you can buy molasses from northern Queensland, you can buy it from South America, and it'll taste the same because it's a byproduct of making sugar. So it's a very stable product and very useful for making rum. However, we wanted to create this French-style rum. When you use fresh sugarcane, it's alive. It's a vibrant, alive kind of, it's got all these biomes and it's got all these bacteria in it, and it actually reflects the region that you're making the spirit. So sugarcane from our region will not be the same to anywhere else. So it's got that real provenance about it. And being a geologist, that was very appealing to Dad. And being from Queensland, we knew there was sugarcane around us. So that sort of kicked it off. And he went from whiskey to wanting to make this French-style agricole rum. And the rest is kind of history, I guess.
And also you've got cellar door tours, tastings, cafes serving beautiful food. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, the hospitality part of it is very much new for us. This has been a long, slow slog for us. So that trip to the Caribbean, where we sort of discovered this style of delicious, dry French agricultural rum was in 2008. And we bought our farm in Tumbulgum in 2012 for the specific reason of making rum. It was an old cattle farm. So it wasn't even a sugarcane farm, but all the farms around us are sugarcane farms. And we didn't know how to, we were city folk. Well, Mum grew up on a farm, but we didn't know how to make, Dad grew up on the Gold Coast. We had no idea how to grow sugarcane. So step one was learn how to grow sugarcane. Step two was perfect the rum. And we've sort of been, that's been an ongoing journey. Dad says that it takes 20 years to really create your signature expression. And we're in what are we in now? Year 8. So we're almost halfway there. And we're producing some amazing rums. But it's been a very long journey and learning everything on the fly because there's no handbook. The craft distilling industry is it's still in its infancy in Australia. So there's no sort of handbook on any of this. So and I guess the hospitality side of things was totally new thing to us as well. We've never had a hospitality business before. So June last year we opened that up, and we always wanted to because we wanted this type of rum because we're not used to drinking it in Australia. We're not really used to drinking rum on the rocks or neat, and that's the style of rum we're creating. We're creating a sipping quality spirit, so that requires a bit of explanation, I guess. And the idea of being able to bring people to our farm, they could see the paddock where the sugar cane's grown, they can see the still, they can see the barrel house, and they can see the bottling room if they come on a tour. That connection between the paddock and the bottle, we really wanted to be able to illustrate that and show that to people. So we always wanted to open up a cellar door, but it took years, more and more years to bring that to fruition. But June last year we opened, which was very exciting, and we've absolutely loved it. It's been enormous fun having people here. How
did the events of late last year, fire, tourism, and prior to that you had the huge floods, and then COVID-19. How has that affected Husk at the moment?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. Our region was mostly spared the fires. We did have fires in the Nightcap National Park, so we did have smoke for quite a while, and they were just devastating. But we weren't really affected that much ourselves. I guess the floods, obviously, we're on a floodplain. So you build a distillery on a floodplain, you expect to be flooded, and it happens every sort of 2 to 3 years. We had a minor flood this year after the bushfires when it rains, it pours. So the floods do affect us. We've got plenty of management planning around that now. We didn't back then. We didn't in 2017, but we do now. The COVID thing, it's been very, I guess, like it's everybody, right? Everybody's had their whole business model thrown out the window and have had to completely rework what their offering is. We're fairly lucky that we have a diversified business. So while the hospitality business got shut down overnight with pretty much zero warning, we were lucky enough to have a production business back of house. So we've been able to keep all of our permanent staff employed and our permanent part-time staff. So our chef's on the bottling line, our maitre d' is doing dispatch and that sort of thing. So everybody's been able to upskill, and they've really risen to that challenge and working with everybody else in the business on different things. So yeah, we've been very fortunate that we had that diversified business, because a lot of our customers who are in purely hospitality are having a much harder time of it. There's an old adage that says during crisis people drink more, and alcohol, even in a recession, alcohol sales go up. And we have found that there was a bit of panic buying of alcohol, actually. Dan Murphy's reported.
Led by me.
And me, to be honest. So having diversified business has really been a blessing at this point during this weird times.
I was talking to a guy at a bottle shop in Broadbeach the other day, and he said beer has taken a hit, and it's a 69% drop with craft breweries and the independent breweries. There's been a sort of not a drop, but nothing really has gone forward with wine, but with spirits. He said, we're still pumping. So you guys are helping pump the economy, aren't you?
It's actually fascinating, and it is true. Spirits, particularly premium craft and Australian brands, have just grown exponentially during this crisis in terms of sales. And it's very interesting because we also export to the UK. And over there, it's actually the opposite. They've got beer and wine sales up. Their premium craft spirits are quite suppressed. So it's different. Different markets have different responses. But in Australia, we've really sort of latched on and fallen in love with Australian craft spirits, which has been fantastic, and that has just been reflected in the buying behaviour that we've seen over the last few months.
But also, you're making liquid sanitizer, so we can also keep ourselves clean.
Absolutely, and that's been another really cool thing to see out of our industry. Again, it's a young industry, and because of that, we're very agile and we're able to just jump from things. And what we found as a collective, as an Australian distilling industry, was that there was a shortage in sanitizer. Nobody could get it. We had schools and medical facilities unable to access sanitizer. And so we were actually encouraged by the government to, if you could make it, get it out there and get it out to your region as quickly and as fast as possible. These are the guidelines. This is what strength it needs to be made to, and go make ethanol-based sanitizer. So that's what a lot of us did, and it was great. It was a great way to sort of. It was a bit stressful. Completely changing your whole production facility to sanitize overnight is. Threw some curveballs, but the team just took it and ran with it, and it was fantastic. So we've because the sanitizer did go quite well as well, we were able to donate a lot of it. So the Royal Flying Doctor Service, we've been supplying them with complimentary sanitizer, and other local charities as well, which has been really great that we could sort of make something vaguely positive out of the negative. Yeah.
Well, they say cleanliness is next to godliness. In that case, you guys are saints. Isn't that right?
Oh, you flatter me. But I'll take it.
You mentioned that you export to the UK. Where else do you export to?
Yeah, we export to about 9 or so countries. Export is a very small part of our overall sales. It probably accounts for about 4%. The reason for that is the domestic market is just so strong for us. Exporting is also a lot of effort. The margins are lower for us, and we don't have endless capacity for production. So most of our gin, particularly, so ink gin is our biggest product. We haven't actually talked about that. We talked a lot about the rum, but the ink gin is really the hero for us, because while the rum was the reason we were founded, rum is a fool's errand. It's very hard to make. It's very expensive to make. You have to age it for a minimum of 2 years, and we've never released anything less than 3 years. So it's a long road to make any money. It's basically a money suck, but it's a passion of love, and it's a 50-year plan.
50-year plan.
50 years will be, yeah, you've got to think long with whiskey, with any aged spirits, whiskey and rum. You've got to have a real long play in mind. But gin is much easier and simpler to make. Not many people realize that, but it's a lot faster, a lot easier. And we can turn around a batch of ink gin in a couple of weeks, whereas it takes sort of, if you count planting the sugarcane, it takes at least 4 years to turn around a batch of rum. So ink gin kind of has propped that up.
Tell us about slow gin. Here's something you can talk about, because we had a bottle here, and let me tell you, this is just between you and I. You hear about forensic investigation and you can take fingerprints. Well, we were trying to find someone that could take like lips, because there were people the slow gin just kept disappearing, and there was no fingerprints. And then we realised there was these lip marks around the top of the bottle, and we had to call in CSI and all that just to find out. It's delightful. Tell us about your slow gin.
Oh, yes. Well, our slow gin, so we released ink gin in 2015, and we'd been making rum for 3 years at that point, and only released about few hundred bottles of rum. So we released really ink gin before we properly released any rum. And it was really popular. It was something a bit different. It was one of the earlier craft Australian gins on the market. We use native botanicals, and the thing that really sets it apart is an infusion with a flower petal. So rather than being a clear gin, it's an infused gin. It's an indigo colour in the bottle, and it's pH sensitive. So the fun thing about gin is you're trying to capture botanicals in a spirit, and there's a whole world of botanicals out there. And we looked to our backyard, native Australian botanicals, and we also looked to our wider backyard in Southeast Asia and found this butterfly pea, beautiful pH-sensitive herbal tea flower. So that's kind of the trademark of Vinc, and that was very popular. It took us completely by surprise. It was very risky releasing such a weird and out there gin at that point, because gin's always been very traditional, and we actually got some advice from some people in the industry saying, don't release it, release a clear gin first, put this weird infused crazy gin down the track. But Dad actually said, no, we're doing it. I think this is the winner.
As Dad says, we're doing it.
Yeah, we got to do it. But then a few years passed, and I love sloe gin. I love the classic English sloe gin. So sloe gin's a gin liqueur, and I really love it. There's a brand from Germany called Elephant Gin, which is just fantastic, and that was the first sloe gin that really got me hooked onto the type of gin. And you just drink it on the rocks. It's a little bit lower alcohol, so it's about 26% generally. Sip it on the rocks, and I really wanted to make it. I kind of bullied everybody into it a little bit. But we wanted to make it a little bit different. So the classic English sloe is quite medicinal. It's very treacly and rich. We wanted to make a lighter Australian version. So as well as sloe berries, we've got some sweet seasonal red berries and some rosella flowers, because we had to have a floral infusion in there. So some rosella flowers as well. And we released that properly about a week before coronavirus hit. So good timing.
So timing was down to a T. But you're teasing everybody, and that's the thing. It's good marketing. You're saying that once we get better, once we can come out of this emergency, there's something delicious waiting for you on the horizon.
Oh, absolutely. Well, another benefit of the coronavirus, I guess, is that a certain, like Dan Murphy's has actually, and I think Coles has done the same with some of their bottle shop chains, is they've said, all right, Australian distilleries, we know this is a really tough time for you. Who has spirits that you want to sell through our bottle shops? Because we know you can't sell them through your cellar door or through your bars anymore. So they've actually taken on a lot more SKUs. So from the 14th of this month, Ink Slow and Berry Gin will be available in every Dan Murphy store across the country, which is very exciting. So there's been lots of opportunities thrown up through this period as well, which is nice to see.
Speaking of opportunities, your views on regional tourism, what's the most important thing to survive this crisis for small business?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess it will be so different for every business. We went into it with the kind of mantra that we wanted to retain people, skills and cash. So we wanted to start the crisis with our core team and end the crisis with our core team, and really hold on to that team, because they're the team is what makes a business. They've with quite a few of our staff we've had for years, since we were up in Mum and Dad's kitchen working around the dining room table. So that was the priority for us, and thankfully to date we've been able to do that with all our permanent staff. But yeah, it's not an easy time, and particularly for the hospitality industry.
It's very tough, but I'm just looking at the team here. I mean, obviously the two most important and make the most decisions, Matilda and the Husk recycling team. The only thing is, I think your Husk recycling team are just a bunch of silly moos, and Matilda is just barking up the wrong tree. Tell us about this little quirky part of your business, because I see that they're on the bottom at the moment, but I would imagine as time goes on, that cycle of importance being placed on certain members, that Matilda and those cows will move up top of the ladder. Tell us about these.
Yes, it was a great puns there. Well done.
Thank you very much.
for listeners tuning in. So Matilda Tilly is our distillery dog, and she is distillery dog / morning tea supervisor, because whenever there's morning tea or smoko to be had, there's Tilly making sure it's all going according to plan. There's no wastage, all that sort of thing. And our Husk recycling team are our beautiful cattle. We have about 50, between 40 and 50, I'm not sure, we've got some babies at the moment, so I'm not sure what our head count is at the moment, cattle who eat all our distillery waste. So the stillage from our still, when we're making rum, they eat all of that. They eat all the spent botanicals, gin botanicals as well. So they're very fat and happy rum-fed cattle. They're our recycling team. So we're lucky to have them, because in the Caribbean they don't have as much room because they're all on islands, very small islands. We've got a big island here, so we can have cattle, but over there there's lots of waste management issues because we've got a lot of water waste. Now, so we're lucky to have our Husk cows.
If somebody wants to say hello to Tilly or the recycling team, or just pop out, and when we can do that, pop out and check your property out, how do they contact you guys?
Yeah, well, we're actually right now we're actually operating a little produce store and a drive-through bottle shop. We're also doing some food as well, some heat-at-home dinners, because Cal, our chef, is getting a bit itchy on the bottling line and needed to get back to cooking some stuff. So we're open 12 till 5 every day now, and you can see the cows over the fence as you're driving in and out. But once we open back up properly, we're open Wednesday through Sunday, and you can just come on down during our opening hours, or you can book a tour. Bookings are recommended probably as we go into this coronavirus sort of situation for weekends. Bookings are probably recommended because we will need to manage numbers and that sort of thing once we open back up. But yeah, just come on down and you can go down and feed the cattle. We do feed them kitchen scraps in the afternoons as well. So if you're lucky, you'll get to, the kids seem to like that.
The website is huskdistillers.com. Harriet Messenger, General Manager of Marketing, Hospitality and Sipping, thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
We're talking business, nothing but talk.
This is the Coast Business Radio Podcast.